What's going on, Muscle Monsters? Alain Gonzalez here, and welcome to the top 5 tips for building your biceps. Now, in the last video, we talked about triceps and I mentioned progression. But I just want to clarify that progression is across the board the most important thing for any muscle group. All right, so that's why it's not on this list. Just assume that you are aiming to progress in your lifts for that muscle group, okay? And if you want an entire video on how to progress with smaller lifts, then I'm going to link that down below. It's going to give you the exact strategy that I recommend for getting stronger on smaller lifts like bicep curls and tricep pushdowns. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, the first thing, loading. Loading is basically any exercise that you can do where you can really add a lot of weight or tension to the muscle. In this case, for the biceps, we can't really do that with the standard bicep curling movements, right? It's not going to be easy to load 100 pounds onto your biceps with curls. However, what we can do are things like chin-ups and pull-ups that are going to allow us to add a lot of weight and tension to the target muscle, in this case the biceps. The biceps are a climbing muscle, so whenever we can do pull-ups or chin-ups, maybe even weighted, we are adding a lot of tension to that muscle, and that's how you should probably always start your biceps training if you're not already throwing it in after your back training, okay? The next thing is the negative. All right, I'm always talking about how important it is to control the negative, but far too often I see people who just let gravity take the eccentric portion of the lift, and they really just focus on the concentric and bringing that weight up. So let's go over really quickly what happens during the negative. All right, and basically what happens is, because we are going with gravity as opposed to against it, it's a lot easier for us to perform, and this is why we can handle a heavier weight on the negative than we can on the positive or the concentric, right? So what happens is most of the muscle fibers that we recruited to bring the weight up are not being used when we are controlling the weight down, and thus the limited muscle fibers are bearing the weight of the load, causing more muscle damage and in turn causing more hypertrophy. So for your negative, always focus on bringing and controlling the weight down for about 2 to 3 seconds to ensure that you're doing the work and that gravity is not taking over. Number 3, the strength curve. A lot of people think that the strength curve of the bicep is just here and here. This is not the case, all right? The strength curve actually starts from where your shoulder is fully lengthened, and then it ends when the shoulder is fully shortened. All right, so obviously there's no exercise where we can perform under tension this entire movement without really involving a lot of shoulder, so it's critical that we do exercises from every plane, right? So from the arm being placed behind the plane of your back, maybe some preacher curls with it in front of your body, and even some overhead curls. You probably have a machine at your gym, or you can do this with cables, where you can fully contract or fully shorten the bicep to its absolute shortest contraction. All right, so make sure you're training the biceps through the entire strength curve and not just from this portion, right? And then so that leads into true range of motion. All right, true range of motion just really means that we're taking the muscle through a range where it's going to fully lengthen and fully shorten, right? Taking it to its weakest position and then bringing it through its strongest position so that we can fully contract. And the lengthening of the bicep happens when the triceps are flexed. When the tricep or the agonist muscle is flexed, this means the antagonist muscle, or the bicep in this case, is fully lengthened. And then obviously it's going to be fully shortened, not here, but here, right? You want to try to, in a sense, touch your forearm to your bicep to ensure that it is fully flexed, okay? And again, when you're bringing the weight down, make sure you contract that tricep to, again, ensure you're training the biceps from their weakest position before you initiate the lift, all right? And then lastly, hand position, okay? We have the biceps are made up of two heads, right? The long and the short head. And then we have the brachialis. And it's pretty important to bring up this muscle because it's going to add width or thickness to the biceps. Also, if you look at the long and the short head, some people have one that's overly developed and one that's underdeveloped. And what happens is maybe from the side their arm looks big, and then from the front their arm looks thin, or vice versa. From the front they have a nice round bicep, and then from the side it just looks skinny and weak. And so that's why it's critical that we build the biceps and the brachialis all, we get it all fully developed. All right, now for most people, all right, you can achieve this just through your basic curling movements, and you won't need any specialized movements for this. However, if this is something or somewhere where you're really lagging, then I encourage you to at least try to throw in different hand positionings into your bicep training. So for example, we want a pronated grip, reverse grip, a lot of forearm action, and brachialis. Also, the position your hand is in is going to determine which of the bicep heads you are emphasizing over the other. Now again, you cannot isolate one over the other, but we can certainly emphasize one over the other. So a few grips that I want you to kind of mess around with or include into your bicep training are pretty standard. We have the pronated grip, we have a neutral grip, and we have a supinated grip. Also, one of the main functions of the biceps is supination. So if you can ever take an exercise where you start from a neutral grip and you supinate on the way up, that's going to emphasize that function a little bit as well. All right, so just to recap, make sure you're loading the muscle with the heavy lifts, make sure you're controlling the negative, make sure you're training through the entire strength curve, right? So maybe some incline curls, maybe some preacher curls, regular curls, and some overhead stuff as well. True range of motion, so make sure you are training the muscle through the entire range of motion where it's at its weakest, when it's lengthened, right? By flexing the triceps and then bringing it all the way up to try to ensure that you're touching your forearm to your biceps to make sure it's fully flexed. All right, and then different hand positions. Pronated, neutral, supinated, or even a supinated movement will all work great. Try to incorporate those as much as you can. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you found it helpful. If you haven't already, grab my free arm training program. Again, it's completely free. Go to the link below, put your name and your email address. You're gonna get instant access to the program. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.